Dear experts and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Indian friends, namaskar and good afternoon. It is my honor to attend this webinar on China-India relations held by the Institute of Chinese Studies. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Mr. Ashok Kanta and ICS for your efforts in holding this webinar. I can see some of my friends were also on the line, and Mr. Vijay Nambia, the former ambassador, and other friends. It's such a pleasure to see you again. And many of you were well-known experts on China, like Ambassador Kanta and Ambassador Nambia. You have made a lot of contributions to the development of China-India relations over the years. And today we are gathered online to have constructive discussions on how to move China-India relations forward. And such discussions are necessary under the current situation. So I'm glad to take this opportunity to share my thoughts on the future of China-India relations under the topic of implement the consensus reached by the leaders of China-India to bring China-India relations back to the track of sound and steady development. And before looking into the future, I think it's necessary to look into the past of China-India relations. Well, this year marks the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and India. And in the past 70 years, we witnessed an extraordinary journey. With the joint efforts of both sides, the two countries have established a strategic and cooperative partnership for peace and prosperity. Especially in recent years, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi held two informal summits and reached important consensus. They emphasized that China and India are each other's development opportunities and stable factors in the current international landscape. We need to strengthen the closer developmental partnership between our two countries. So under the guidance of the consensus reached by the two leaders, China and India have deepened exchanges and cooperation in various fields. Our coordination in major international and regional affairs has been continuously enhanced. And although there are existing differences between us, the two sides have always been seeking solutions through dialogue and consultation. China-India relations have never stopped moving forward. And along the way, the precious experience we have learned is that we should unswervingly adhere to the strategic guidance of our leaders, achieve common development through friendly cooperation, and properly handle differences through dialogue and consultation to push forward the sound development of our bilateral relations. I think these lessons and experiences still have important practical significance in handling China-India relations even today. Recently, as Ambassador Kanter just mentioned, there occurred the Garvan Valley incident in the western sector of the China-India boundary. It was an unfortunate incident. Neither side wants to see it happen. And immediately after the incident, the two sides conducted dialogues through military and diplomatic channels. The Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi held telephone conversations with Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Mr. Ajit Doval, respectively. The two sides also held 4 rounds of Corps commander level talks and 3 meetings under the working mechanism for consultation and coordination on China-India border affairs. It's the WMCC. And with the joint efforts of both sides, the border troops have disengaged in most localities. The situation on the ground is de-escalating and the temperature is coming down. I have noticed that for some time, scholars from Indian think tanks have paid close attention to the Garvan Valley incident and expressed various opinions. And some believe that this will be a turning point to change or even reverse China-India relations. But honestly speaking, I can share with you my idea that is different with this view. In my video speech on July the 10th, I proposed 5 points. China and India should be partners rather than rivals. China and India need peace rather than confrontation. We need to pursue win-win cooperation rather than zero-sum game. And we need to build trust rather than suspicion. China-India relations should move forward rather than backward. I think that position is very clear, and it is different with the points that China and India is at a turning point. In the recent and current era, we believe that the basic national conditions of China and India as the 2 largest developing neighbors remains unchanged. The orientation of China and India being partners, friendly cooperation, and common development remains unchanged. The general structure that China and India cannot live without each other remains unchanged. So these 3 unchanged are our basic judgment on the current China-India relations. And it is based on this judgment that China's basic policy towards India remains unchanged. Both sides should grasp the fundamental interest of the 2 countries and their peoples and stick to friendly cooperation and properly handle differences to bring the bilateral relations back to the normal track. And to move China-India relations forward, I believe that we need to strengthen our views on several key issues. The first, China is committed to peaceful development, and it is not a threat or strategic threat to India. To safeguard world peace and promote common development has always been the fundamental goal of China's diplomacy. The Chinese people believe in peace and harmony and value sincerity and integrity. So there's no genie for seeking hegemony or resorting to military power in Chinese people's blood. China has a long history as the most powerful country in the world, but it never colonized other countries. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China over 70 years ago, we have always pursued good neighborly friendship, sought development with our neighbors, and worked to make the pie of cooperation bigger. And no matter how developed China may become, we will follow the path of peaceful development and will never seek hegemony or expansion. It has been formally written into China's constitution, and it is our basic national policy and solemn commitment. There are nearly 1.4 billion people in China, and it is an arduous task to lift such a huge population out of poverty and make them lead a happy life. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, we have given top priority to development. For ensuring adequate food and clothing for the people, to build a basically moderate, prosperous society, we will soon complete the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects. And peace is a prerequisite for development. There is no development without peace. And to achieve high quality development, China must uphold and safeguard peace. And as the two largest developing countries, emerging economies, and the only two countries with over 1 billion population in the world, China and India are both at a critical period of national development and rejuvenation. And both countries need to concentrate on their own development and achieve revitalization. This is not something that can be accomplished overnight. It is a historic mission that will take 1 decade or more decades, or even longer to achieve. Therefore, the dragon-elephant tango is the only correct choice for the two sides. It best serves the fundamental interests of the two countries and the peoples, and serves the lasting peace and prosperity of Asia and the world at large. And it is based on this consensus that previous generations of Chinese and Indian leaders have always viewed China-India relations from a strategic perspective and put boundary questions and other issues left over from history in an appropriate position of China-India relations, to properly handle and manage them, and to avoid complications and escalation, and to prevent them affecting the overall development of China-India relations. We still can remember that in 1988, former India Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi made an ice-breaking trip to China. And the then Chinese leader, Mr. Deng Xiaoping, made it clear to him that development is the common task facing the two countries. Only when China and India have developed will a real Asian century emerge, he said. And he also said, if China and India are developed, we our contributions to the mankind. And the two sides also agreed to actively develop bilateral relations in other areas while seeking a mutually acceptable solution to the boundary question. And it laid the foundation for the rapid development of China-India relations over the next more than 3 decades. And since 2014, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have stressed on many occasions that China and India are each other's opportunities and pose no threat to each other. This has made a basic judgment on China-India relations and pointed out the right direction for the development of bilateral relations. And at present, both China and India are facing severe challenges, namely COVID-19, the economic downturn, and pressure on people's livelihoods and employment caused by the epidemic. When I saw the people wearing masks on the streets and the doctors and nurses in protective suits, I really feel that the invisible virus, rather than China, is the threat facing India. And in the face of this common enemy, China and India should work together to overcome difficulties. It is undoubtedly short-sighted and harmful to deny the long history of peaceful coexistence between China and India, and to portray our friendly neighbor for thousands of years as an opponent or a strategic threat due to the temporary differences and difficulties. We should correctly analyze and view each other's strategic intentions and prevent misinterpretation and miscalculation in a positive, open, and inclusive attitude. Second point is that China firmly upholds its sovereignty, and meanwhile, China will never engage in aggression or expansion. The rights and wrongs of the Galvan Valley incident are very clear. I have talked about it in my previous interview with Indian media, so I won't go into the details today. What I want to say is that how the two sides should treat this. It is the legitimate right for every country to safeguard its own sovereignty and territorial integrity. And since the founding of the PRC, China has firmly safeguarded its national sovereignty, security, and development interests, and opposed all forms of hegemonism and power politics. And in the meanwhile, we have never been aggressive or pursued our own development at the expense of other countries. Up till now, China has demarcated boundary with 12 of its 14 land neighbors through friendly negotiations, turning the land borders into bonds of friendly cooperation. This demonstrates that on the basis of mutual respect and treating each other as equals, we can find the right way to solve problems through peaceful negotiations. One fact is that China has never claimed any land outside its own territory. The label of expansionist cannot be pinned on China. It is normal for neighbors to have differences. We should focus on friendship and cooperation instead of only on differences. And we should not allow the development process of the two countries and the overall interests of the bilateral relations to be disturbed. As we Chinese often say, you can't see the wood for the trees. The more challenges we face on the boundary question, the more we need to strengthen dialogue and communication. And pending the final settlement of the boundary question, two sides should make joint efforts to maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas. Over the past decades, the two sides have managed differences through dialogues and negotiation, and established various mechanisms such as the special representatives meeting on the boundary question, reached a series of agreements to maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas, and keep the channels of military and diplomatic communication open. These good practices must continue. There has been an argument in the Indian public opinion on the boundary question, which worries me. And that's suggesting that India government adjust its policy towards China, and change its stance on issues related to Taiwan, Xizang, Hong Kong, and South China Sea to put pressure on China. I want to point out emphatically that Taiwan, Hong Kong, Xizang, and Xinjiang affairs are totally China's internal affairs and bear on China's sovereignty and security. While China doesn't interfere into other countries' domestic affairs, it allows no external interference and never trades its core interests either. As the two countries have different histories, cultural backgrounds, and social systems, it is inevitable that we have different views on some issues. President Xi Jinping pointed out that mutual trust is the foundation for the stability and the development of China-India relations. And this speaks to the essence and the key of China-India relations. To achieve mutual trust between China and India, we need to have a correct understanding of each other's strategic intentions and strengthen communication and exchanges. We need to respect each other treat each other as equals, and be open and inclusive. We must adhere to the principle of non-interference in each other's internal affairs and respect and accommodate each other's core interests and major concerns. We need to honor our commitments, walk the talk, and implement the consensus reached between the two sides. Both China and India are the great Oriental nations with ancient civilizations. I have the full confidence that we have enough wisdom and capability to solve the problems between us and blaze a new path of peaceful coexistence and win-win cooperation between major neighboring countries. And the third point is, China advocates win-win cooperation and opposes zero-sum game. China has always emphasized win-win cooperation in its development. While developing itself rapidly, China has contributed more than 30% to world economic growth and over 70% to the global poverty reduction for many years in a row. China never exported refugees, let alone wars. Instead, China has shared its development dividends with others. China's contribution to the world are obvious to all. And that is why President Xi Jinping advocated that we should build a shared future for human beings. Chinese and Indian economies are highly complementary and have huge market potential. Our bilateral economic and trade relations are a model of win-win cooperation, which has been proved by many facts. Since the 21st century, bilateral trade volume between China and India has increased by 32 times to nearly $100 billion last year. China has been India's largest trading partner for many years, with a cumulative investment of more than $8 billion in India. China-India economic trade cooperation has boosted the development of industries such as mobile phones, household appliance, infrastructure, automobile making, medicine, and biology in India, creating a large number of local jobs and cost-effective products for Indian consumers. If it is not for the high degree of complementarity between China and India, how can we explain the remarkable achievements of China-India economic and trade cooperation in the past decades? And in fact, Chinese and Indian economies are interwoven and interdependent. According to local statistics in India, in 2018 and 19, 92% of Indian computers, 82% of TV sets, 80% of optical fibers, 85% of motorcycle components are imported from China. Countless examples like these are the reflection of globalization. And globalization has deepened the interconnection between countries into capillaries. Whether you want it or not, the trend is difficult to reverse. Both China and India have been deeply embedded in the global industrial chain and supply chain. The development of economic and trade cooperation between our two countries is determined by international division of labor. It is also the natural choice of enterprises and consumers for our two countries under the market-oriented principles. The forced decoupling of the Chinese and Indian economies is against the trend and will only lead to a lose-lose outcome. A German friend working in India recently told me that due to India's recent restrictions on the import of Chinese auto components, the production of German automakers in India had been greatly affected. This fully demonstrates that self-protection, non-tariff barriers, and restrictive measures violate market laws and WTO rules. It will only be harmful to oneself, to others, and as well as to the world. The economic and trade exchanges between China and India should be a positive cycle of mutual accomplishment. It should not become a knockout nor a zero-sum game that deliberately suppresses others. Indian government announced that it will provide a favorable investment environment for foreign companies, which should include Chinese companies and treat each and everyone equally. Both sides should recognize the mutually beneficial and win-win nature of bilateral economic and trade cooperation, jointly create an open, fair, just business environment, and maintain the momentum of China-India economic and trade cooperation to bring more tangible benefits to the peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, China-India relations today are hard-earned and should be cherished all the more. It is like an exquisite craft glass. So much effort and wisdom by a lot of people are needed to make this glass. Some of the Chinese experts online today have also put a lot of efforts into this. But it will only take a few seconds to break it. China-India relations have reached a critical juncture now, and a little carelessness may risk breaking the glass. At this moment, the two sides should handle the relations cautiously, calmly, and rationally. Conform to the international trend, and always look forward and move forward, and resolutely avoid whirlpool of suspicion and confrontation caused by miscalculation of the situation. Personally, I always have strong confidence in the future of China-India relations. China-India friendship serves the fundamental interests of the two countries. It accords with the aspiration of the two peoples and the general trend. It should not be stagnated or even reversed due to temporary difficulties. As an old Chinese saying goes, bite the green mountain like the bamboo and won't let go, no matter from whichever direction the winds leap. And Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Find purpose, the means will follow." As long as China and India have firm faith in developing good neighborly and friendly relations, transmit the strategic consensus reached by the leaders, and resort to actions, no force can shake it. Dear friends, you come from strategic academic and media circles, and you are the opinion leaders of Indian society. I hope that you can speak with an objective, rational, and responsible voice, meet China halfway, and correctly guide and shape the Indian public opinions on China, and inject more positive energy into China-India relations. The Chinese embassy in India is willing to work together with you, and let's transmit and implement the consensus reached by the two leaders and contribute to bring China-India relations back to the track of steady and sound development at an earliest time. Thank you very much.